Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Naum.
What up, people? Welcome back. Today, I have a freaking kindness rockstar on the show. Snedden is an epic storyteller who got her start working as a journalist for many mainstream media outlets, including BBC, the International Business Times, and Buzzfeed, among others. She literally had the dream job. She lived the dream life, traveling the world and getting paid to write about her experiences. I mean, who would not want that, right? But somehow, she still found herself unfulfilled. This is when she founded The Kind Effect, an acts of kindness movement and video series that uplifts humanity with the joy of good deeds. As a kindness advocate, Megan promotes the mental health benefits of altruism by sharing her personal story about the ways kindness has helped her through both trauma and depression. In this show, we talk about some of her epic experiences, including one of my favorite stories about how she filmed a first date with a guy she met on a dating app. She shared it on YouTube and it went full viral. I'm talking like millions of views, which actually helped jumpstart her kindness movement. We get into how kindness and just doing good in general can actually change your life and even affect the science of your mental state. Enjoy the show. What's up, Megan? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sebastian.
It sounds like you're laughing. I feel like you were just laughing. You were cracking your knuckles right before the show.
I was just like going into this like I'm gonna get into a fist fight.
I wish that would have been recorded because it was so loud. It was like
I got my brass love knuckles.
Your brass love knuckles.
Ready for this love throwdown.
I love it. It's great. You know, I gotta tell the truth about how we met. And so I got to tell listeners out there because it's funny because so Cross Campus is this co-working space. And, you know, when you're hustling, you know, and you're not crushing it yet, like you're trying to figure out ways to save money one way or another. So I remember that I had this app called Desk Pass. So it's basically like ClassPass, but for co-working. And so I had this, like, you get to go in, you pay and you get to go in once or twice a week to these co-working spaces. And long story short, I started kind of becoming this regular. And then, like, you know, the people that worked there thought that I worked there. And my good friend, Drew Howard, did work there. So all of a sudden, I'm just like, man, I think I got this. I'm going to start kind of crashing this place and saving a little bit of money. So I started like just going into Cross Campus, like pretending I'd be on the phone and just kind of wave. Yeah, I'm on the phone. It's cool. Yeah. And then I'd go in and then like for a while. So I'm kind of like, some days, you know, they're being paid for. Other days, I'm just kind of like crashing this co-working space. And then I'm sitting there in one of those big wide open tables. And all of a sudden you come up to me and you're like, hey, I know you, like super loud. I'm kind of like embarrassed. Who's this girl just yelling at me that she knows me? I don't know her. Hey, dude, I know you. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to work and I'm also crashing the workspace. Oh, don't blow my freaking cover, dude.
That co-working space also, unlike others, it's not like broken up into different offices. Oh, no. It's all one big, it looks like a greenhouse because it's all glass. That thing echoes.
It does. Everyone can hear and it's really big. And I was like, oh my God, don't draw extra attention to me right now. Like, I don't know.
Hey, you're the guy that's sneaking in.
Yeah. By the way, yeah. Meanwhile, somehow I'm sure the CEO of Cross Campus will hear this podcast one day and they'll come after me that we're not paid for. Oh well, you know, you can't.
Yeah,
right.
I couldn't contain my excitement because actually that was my first day at Cross Campus.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I couldn't believe that I actually knew somebody there. So
Hey, we were in class together. So yeah, long story short, we were in class together at UC Santa Barbara.
You don't remember, I do, but
it was a big class. Like, you know, 200 people. Anyway, so Megan, I start the shows by asking my guests when their last oh shit moment was, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I'm actually going to just basically force you to tell a story and tell us about. I mean, you were in Spain when shit hit the fan for COVID, and man, that's an oh shit moment. Like
major.
And what made you decide like I got to get out of it? Because you were like hitting this great point of your life, and then COVID hit, and then like Spain was shut down, and over here it wasn't quite yet.
It was crazy. I think I'm still in a state of shock after that had happened because, I had gone over to Spain to do a teaching program for a year. It's called the Auxiliares de Conversación
Okay, muy bien.
program. Muy bien. I was loving it. I was loving Spain. And actually my boyfriend and I had planned this really long trip around Europe. And we were so excited. COVID had kind of hit at that point. It was over in China and we had heard about it kind of coming over to Europe. But I felt like things just moved and changed so fast with this that there really was no advanced preparation that was able to be made. So we were like, yeah, COVID, no big deal. So he comes over. Our first destination was Milan, of course. And we ended up leaving Milan like 2 days before they had ended up closing the city down. And we kind of maybe got an indicator that something was happening when we went to just go buy water at the grocery store and there was no water.
Wow.
And there were hundreds of people in line. We're like, what is happening? This is crazy. So we traveled together, have a good time, hear about COVID escalating. And I was like, wow, this is so weird. He leaves. I go back to Spain. I was in school for maybe 1 more week before they closed down the schools. And then Spain went into like a hardcore lockdown because unlike places in the US, they didn't allow us to even go outside to go for exercise or walk.
Yeah, right.
So I was covertly sneaking fruit and vegetables into a grocery bag and just to like go outside. And
I heard about that. Pretend grocery shopping just to move around.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I could really only tolerate being in my apartment alone because my roommates left. And at that point, for like a week, and at that point, it didn't even really matter that I was in Spain anymore because it's not like you're going to travel or go get tapas or anything. My most important people to me are over here. Mm-hmm. Then, they put in the travel ban and the travel advisory and closing airports. So literally on a Friday evening, I decided to just pack up my life in Spain and get out. And I'm just like furiously throwing things in a suitcase and left the next day. And here we are months later.
What a crazy time. And for you, like, a travel ban for you is not the same as a travel ban for somebody that goes on vacation from time to time. So, and we'll get into that. So it's definitely exactly. Yeah. If you're just listening to the podcast, Megan was doing a chokehold. So follow that. What was your most current hell yeah moment? Recent. Last thing you can think of came to mind.
Hell yeah. Oh my God. Last night.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of my family dog, who has become like my bestie with all this time at home. I realized in my closet that I have a Wonder Woman costume with a detachable cape. So I ripped the cape off and it actually fits around his neck. So my mom and I put the cape around his neck and we're throwing the ball and filming it in slow motion.
Hell yeah.
That was my hell yeah.
Just watching the slow motion.
There haven't been a lot of like extraordinary hell yes since lockdown because, we're all just like at home, toilet paper bowling and figuring out how to bide our time.
Right. We got to enjoy what we have.
Yes.
So Megan, if anybody like looks at your Instagram, like you're a freaking rock star, right? You live this. I mean, in all kinds of things and things that you do good, that you give back. But then even like going back and like just looking at your career as a journalist, you've got this like, and it's good because we're going to get to talk about the realness, but you got this extravagant lifestyle of traveling to the most epic places in the world, getting paid to write about it. Like, tell us a little bit first, like how you got into that, because that's a dream job for a lot of humans. Like, how did you get paid to travel the world and write about it?
Is another $1 million question. It's not a perfectly formulaic thing. I think I've always just been someone that when I consider a vision or an idea, I think, well, if someone else is doing it, it's got to be possible somehow. So I've always been a big like figure outer person in general. And somehow I just kind of stitched it together. I double majored in international relations and writing in college and worked as an editor at the school paper. And then I actually graduated into the recession in 2008. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do because everyone's like, journalism's dead. Everything's dead. You're not going to have a job. So it's like,
I got into real estate on that same year, Megan. You know how smart that was.
Oh, well.
2007. Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of what people are saying about this moment too, with the effect that the pandemic has had on the economy. It was very it was hopeless and hopeful because my dream, I had not really traveled internationally at that time. So I took my camera and I was like, you know what? If there's no jobs, I'm just going to move to South America.
Hell yeah.
Because this is my version of rational decision making, by the way, where I'm like, oh, I'll just move to South America. That makes way more sense. I was lucky enough at that point to have one friend who worked at a very tiny and now dead publication in some no-name town, who I had said, hey, I want to write a little short story about my travels with pictures for your newspaper. And they gave me $75 for it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Right. I was like, oh yeah, I'm a travel journalist. So I felt very inspired by that. Started blogging had kind of started to come on board. So I started my first ever blog. Then when I'd spent, a couple of years learning Spanish, volunteering, wandering around South America, practicing the art of taking pictures and just taking terrible photos. Then when I decided I had enough moment of wandering around the world aimlessly, I said, okay, I really want to take this seriously. New York seems like the place to be to make this happen. And I went directly from Argentina, the north of Argentina.
Argentina.
It was snowing in northern Argentina when I left, and it was summer in New York City. Yeah. And I showed up there with my suitcase and it was just super hot. And then I don't know, I moved to, I had no money. I moved to Brooklyn to this little apartment that was right over the subway, the subway running right underneath it. Uh-huh. And I just started sending emails to anybody that would have it, asking who would go to coffee with me, trying to make all of the right connections, and eventually got, one publication after another and built my career that way. Amazing. I was determined.
Determined. I love it. How many countries have you visited? Do you know the number?
Close to 40.
Close to 40.
Yes.
And how many different publications or magazines or digital publications have you written for? Any idea?
I actually don't know the count, but I used to work for BBC, International Business Times, Newsweek, Yahoo, Buzzfeed. all the places.
What was the strangest, weirdest cultural thing that you experienced? And that doesn't mean that it's that you're judging it and as an experience, but I mean what was the strangest as a Westerner? Was there something that sticks out that was man, I was not expecting that?
I think every country has a moment like that. Traveling in Latin countries, the people just stand really close. They just are close talkers.
Yeah.
When I got to Argentina, and everyone has no problem just being this close, super close to your face, and you're talking and you're just can I have some space?
Do you know how I talk to my friends and family in Argentina? Do you know how hard it is for them to social distance, dude?
Oh, I bet. It's
my God. I mean,
they all put their hands on each other, super close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was and then it was funny because after living in South America for so long, I came back to the States just very comfortable with being close to people. And so people kind of non-verbally back up a little. And then I would find myself leaning toward them.
Yeah, that's how I met you. I'm what are you talking about? That was uncomfortable for you? That's exactly how you are.
I am very touchy-feely, so that vibes with me, but it doesn't always vibe with other people.
So nothing sticks out as something crazy. You didn't see a goat get murdered in the name of the rain to come or something crazy like that. I don't know.
I have plenty of memories. When I was backpacking around Peru, and we were me and two girlfriends. I cannot believe that I did this, by the way. It goes on the list of wow, I'm happy to be alive. That was dumb. me and two girlfriends, we were ready to go home. We flagged down what we thought was a cab. It was just some person in a Cadillac that was like, jump on in. I'm a taxi. So we're like, okay, whatever. Get in this rattle-trap taxi, and we're in this area of Peru where there's no paved roads. So we're driving down a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, and the trunk is slamming up and down because it's just tied with a bungee cord. And then I'm sitting in the front seat. And the guy's like, oh, hey, I need to like make a delivery on the way home. And I'm like, all right. So he's like, oh, will you help me get it out of the trunk? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I get out of the car. We like unrope the trunk and open it up. And it's like literally a dead cow.
Oh.
Hacked to pieces. And he's like, yeah, help me carry all this raw meat to this person's front door. And I'm like, oh my God. So I, helping unload this guy's car, and then we rope it up, and then he just drove us home and dropped us off. That was it.
Farm to table, baby.
True farm to table. Taxi to table.
All right. So I remember seeing this post. You were like traveling first class, Austria Airlines to Austria. So, I just want to touch on this. Like you see, everything from the outside has this one perspective.
Sure.
So it's like this. I mean, is that like the biggest brand you've worked with, or kind of like one of the most extravagant things you've done in terms of like travel, like an airline's paying for you to travel first class? Like, how sick is that?
The funny thing is they actually didn't pay me to do that. I won it in a raffle.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did. I won that trip in a raffle, but of course, I think they had expected maybe some social love in exchange. That was definitely a holy shit moment, because I was like, I'm very much a budget traveler, a backpacker. I've still to this day stay in hostels, and I've just never really had that much money, but I've always lived a very rich life. I did not sleep through that entire first class experience because I had never flown first class before. And my friend just passes out, and I'm just like, I can't sleep because I just need to get this into my head. Like, I'm in first class and this is amazing. Yeah.
So there's, you've got these, first class experience. You've been traveling all over the world. You've written for all these huge publications. Somehow this dream epic job is at some point not fulfilling you. So tell us a little bit about why you were starting to feel unfulfilled. What was it that drew you to kind of take the next step in your life that moved you into the kind effect?
Mm-hmm. I think with a decision or a feeling like that of not being fulfilled anymore, it's not ever really about just one factor in your life. It's about a combination. There's always a confluence of things going on, right? And at that time, I was turning 30. I had traveled to so many places, and I was in my 20s, just like a really independent woman, and was going around the world by myself. And it was exhilarating, and it was really fun. And I think part of that was inspired by losing my dad and brother both unexpectedly when I was younger. And that had kind of given me this drive of, I need to live now and experience life to the fullest. And, when I was younger, I'm still young, but when I was the last decade of my life, that was what living life to the fullest meant to me at that time, going around the world and, making the most of my career and everything. But then as I got older, and I had checked so many things off my bucket list, the idea of living life to the fullest just started to look different to me. I was craving being in partnership with somebody. I really wanted to be a little bit more settled down somewhere with the opportunity to travel still regularly. And things like adding another publication to my roster, or checking another country off my list, just really wasn't going to scratch that fulfillment itch for me, if you will. And I really noticed within myself, what's missing is feeling like I have a purpose in life because I'm giving back to other people. I have always felt like I want to be of service, and I want to leave behind a legacy of contribution and giving back in some way. So I'm thinking about these things, and then I definitely overthought it a lot because I've always been like a big vision person when I'm like, okay, when I think about purpose and giving back, making a difference to others, like what's going to be the next big thing, because I'm very much also about a challenge. Like, how am I going to make this challenging? How am I going to figure this out like a puzzle, the way that I did with my journalism career? And then I really just kind of, drew a blank because I just overthought it, And when I talk to other people and they ask me, well, what actually does make you happiest when you give back to others? And ever since the time I was young, I've always loved the element of surprise. And I've always loved making people feel special in very simple ways. And then I had it kind of in my head that maybe I would travel around the world, doing acts of kindness and engaging in service. And again, the picture was overwhelming to me because I was like, oh, I don't have any like hosting or production experience at all. I didn't have much of a social following at that time, and just overcomplicated it in my head again. Until a friend was like, why are you making this so difficult on yourself? Why don't you just, if you want to do acts of kindness, like forget the big picture thinking of making this a show and traveling around the world, etc.
That's what you wanted. You wanted a show.
I did. Right? that I decided was like my next big challenge,
Got it.
That was the vision. But my friend was just like, start small and just see where it goes. So I came up in my head with a few different acts of kindness that I wanted to do. And at that time, I didn't have any film skills either. So I just filmed it on my iPhone. And just that really did it for me. It was really exciting and really fun. And I used my background in journalism and a little bit of PR to then pitch this video out to publication.
What was the video about? The first one.
The first one was about, I had put a call out on Facebook looking for somebody in the Los Angeles area that deserved a bouquet of flowers. So then a friend told me about this girl who had recently lost her dad, like right before her wedding. And that resonated with me because I had also lost my dad unexpectedly. So I was planning to just show up at her house with the flowers. But then I was also chatting with this guy on Hinge, and he was like, yo, let's have drinks this weekend. And I said, I didn't mind torturing somebody I didn't really know because, with the dating apps, it's such a gamble whether you're actually going to connect with someone or not. And I'm like, I have nothing to lose by just inviting this person to go have an epic experience together. So I was like, hey, actually, I'm going to do this act of kindness. Do you want to come with? And he surprisingly said yes.
So let me clarify that. I actually remember this really well. This is a long time ago now. How long ago was this? Like
4 years ago?
4 years ago. So
like 4 years ago.
You're connecting with this guy on Hinge.
Yeah, on Hinge.
And you've got this random act of kindness that you're going to be doing. And so he's like, let's get drinks. And you're like, okay, cool. Let's go on a first date. But instead of getting drinks, why don't you just go do this random act of kindness with me and give flowers to this girl whose dad has recently passed. I made it
optional.
And you decided to film it. How great is this for the guy? He's like telling his homies, yo, bro, I got this chick. She's hot. I'm going to be like, on her first date. What's your first date? Oh, we're going to go do a random act of kindness. And she's going to film the whole thing.
No. I showed up like rolling it hot because he didn't know that I was going to film it.
You didn't know?
No, I did not tell him that. I was like, I'll just tell him when he gets here. So then he shows up for the date and I come downstairs with the iPhone rolling. And I'm like, okay. And we like hug and I'm holding the iPhone. And then I get in the car and he's driving and we're going to drive to the grocery store to get the flowers. And I'm still filming him. I'm like, oh, have you ever been on a first date where someone filmed you? But
I remember.
It's all LA and he like worked in production and stuff. And,
oh my gosh.
And so it like wasn't a big deal. I got really lucky that.
Yeah.
But this guy, I mean, we don't keep in touch and we're not even homies anymore, which sucks because that would have been cool. But like actually a year and a half ago, I was invited to be part of the Ellen show, and they wanted to have me, the girl that I gave the flowers to, and the guy from the date come be in the audience. And it was sponsored by Cheerios. And then they ended up giving her whole audience $1 million to share. So he ended up getting money out of this. He didn't know it at the time. He was just a kind soul. But yeah, fast forward 3 years, he ended up getting.
So this video was what gave birth to what is today the Kind Effect. That video went viral AF. How many? It did. How many total like views between like different places that it was posted and all that did it get? You think?
Multiple millions.
Multiple millions. That's
so
over
20 million.
And this came out of something that started with lack of fulfillment in this dream career that you have, into wanting to do something that you wanted to give back, and figuring out like, what can I do? And then you're struggling with this perfectionism aspect, which I can really resonate with, because I'm in marketing and branding, and I've got this thing where like things need to be beautiful and pretty. And like you had this travel background where like you've got, travel photography, and you wanted this production to be epic. And at the end of the day, it was far from perfect. It was far from planned in a way. It didn't have high production. You were shooting it with your iPhone. So your first act of kindness, without having the company yet, or the brand Kind Effect, was a total success. And was that the beginning? Do you think that was like also like an aha moment of like, I feel more fulfilled now, like because of it?
Yeah, it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
Because I just thought I was mostly doing it for myself too, because in that moment, the other thing that I didn't mention, though, I was also really depressed, because I just kind of felt like I had come down off of this high of like traveling around the world and feeling like journalism was my mission in life, and then suddenly to just kind of feel lukewarm about doing as much travels before, losing interest in journalism, having to deal with all of the crazy stuff with like dating and not really finding anybody that I wanted to be in an authentic partnership with.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And I honestly think that doing a simple act of good was all that I could muster at that time.
Yeah.
So it was actually really effective for me. I felt, it just felt so good.
That's great.
I didn't even know how those flowers were going to be received from the girl, Haley, who I'm still really good friends with.
That's great.
But it really was like an authentically great moment. And when I shared it and I saw it go viral the way that it did, the comments that I was getting from people was like, oh, hey, it's so great to see something really authentic. It's wonderful to receive good news and see that people in the world care.
Yeah.
And so I just really caught on to the idea that like, hey, maybe there's other people out there like me who really are starving for something a little bit more real when it comes to content. So then I was like, oh crap, I need a website and a name. I didn't have anything. And then I just decided to give it, a title, which was a process too. And here we are with like a thing that didn't even know it was going to be a thing, but now it's a thing.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit SebastianNaum.com. That's Sebastian, Naum.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's SebastianNaum.com. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show.
The Kind Effect, which is so cool. And, I talk a lot about how like scaling profits can scale give backs and like do good companies and purpose driven brands and all this. But I also don't like, it's also interesting because a lot of people may get discouraged by that, thinking, oh, well, I work for this corporation, or I've got this job and I make money here, but I can't change the way my work or my company does business. I can't make them do stuff. But you can do something on your own. You can make money somewhere else. You could make money with journalism. You can make money with your, corporate job, and then figure out that, hey, like I'm not fulfilled here. That doesn't mean that you have to drop your job and drop your whole career in your life and change it to do something, different. You can actually still have that and then do stuff like the things that you're doing that actually will bring you way more fulfillment that you can even imagine. So like actually doing stuff for others literally releases chemicals in your brain that will help you with your depression, with your anxiety. So can you talk a little bit to that specifically? I know that recently you've been, you were studying about the science of well-being and all that good stuff. So can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Rewinding a little bit.
Yeah, let's rewind.
Rewinding a little bit to the point that you had made. I think it's really unfortunate sometimes when people, I do see people kind of fall victim, if you will, to the gurus out there that are like, yeah, quit your 9 to 5, like quit your job and like conquer the world. I don't think that you necessarily need to do that to do something that you really want. If you have stable income and you feel, reasonably good about your job, I say keep it and do what you want to do on the side until you have the space that like potentially that could take over. I've always just been somebody that just like full force jumps into things. But even still, I also have multiple side jobs to support what I do because the kind of fact I've received a lot of like in-kind donations. So companies that want to help me by, giving me things to incorporate into content or to gift forward to others. But it's not necessarily something that I've made a lot of money doing. I've more supported myself with taking journalism and turning that more into like content creation. So doing like copywriting and photography for brands, because unfortunately there's just not a lot of money in journalism. And so I'm still doing plenty of other things on the side to keep myself afloat while I, do my passion project. And, it's definitely at a pivoting point now where I'm kind of deciding where I want to take it. And there's a lot of opportunity there, I think.
And that's important to say because that transition, it's like you can keep this other thing that's feeding you and that you can do something you're passionate about so that you can make that transition. If it does become something that you can do full time, then great. But it isn't, you don't have to necessarily put that pressure on yourself to like just quit your job, like you were just saying. Like, and obviously we're both entrepreneurs saying it from one side, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. People can just do it with whatever works for them. But I think the importance that I'm getting from what you're telling us is really that there wasn't like something you weren't fulfilled with. And that you didn't make a change. You made a change. You decided that you were going to try this other thing out, which had to do with giving back. And so,
I mean, there's always a trade-off of some kind.
Yeah.
There's always a trade-off of some kind, because even when I was in that space of deciding like, oh, journalism is kind of out for me, what's next? I've worked in plenty of restaurants and bars. And taught online English classes and stuff. So there's absolutely no shame in finding ways to continue to support yourself through that. So
I've seen the Kind Effect do some big things. You were just saying you've had some big brand partnerships. I remember you guys did something with GMC, I think. Was it GMC?
Yeah, with Chevy.
Yeah. And then so these brands will come to you, and in order for them to tie themselves with the give back, they sponsor the production and they sponsor the gifts that you're giving to people. How does that work?
Well, at that time, that was really my first big thing where I was like, oh my God. And they actually didn't have budget then at all to pay for production. So the production came out of my own pocket because I was like, oh, I really want an example with a big brand that's filmed well and made well, even if I have to pay for it, because that was important to me. But they did, provide a car with gas for the weekend and some other things.
So these like random acts of kindness. So you gave an example of one with the flowers. What's like another one that like comes to mind? Like what was another big one, one of your favorite ones that you've done?
One of my favorite ones I've done was a collaboration actually with the Thai Tourism Board, and it's called ASEAN, is like the overarching body in Asia that promotes tourism throughout the continent. A friend and I went over to Myanmar, and we were doing some volunteer work with monks in the area and made some cool videos about that. But it was just Myanmar is such an incredible and interesting place to learn about. It was a very foreign and different culture to both of us. And same thing where it just became a little bit more of an emotional experience being welcomed into a Buddhist center, and that through simple good deeds that you give back, you can really make a big difference in someone else's life. So we had We had like a big blessing ceremony with rice that we had brought to this monastery that was going to feed, hundreds of people.
Mm.
And I think that bag of rice was only like $30, which is,
Wow.
yeah.
Literally feed hundreds of people with $30 bag of rice.
$30, yeah.
Yeah, it's the scope of good. Like you think that's something that I've gotten caught to in the past. I remember you were saying that sometimes like with a little bit of that perfectionism or whatever, you get caught into like this huge picture of like this needs to be this big. This will be like a television show or like oh, I want to give back, but I want to be able to help like 1,000 homeless people in Los Angeles, and it's like you can't like just. Got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, gotta start somewhere, but like never underestimate the breadth of impact that you can really make on someone's life when you just do something kind for them. I will never forget when I was in my mid-20s when my dad had unexpectedly passed away. He was in an aviation accident, and it ruined my life. It really did. It tore me apart. Yeah, I mean, I was actually living in New York when it happened. Had to completely abandon everything that I was doing there. And I had so many people help me in little but really significant ways. There were 3 girls that had gone over to my apartment in New York and just completely emptied it out for me so I could sublet it. And they divided my belongings among their houses to store them for me while I was gone. And I had a friend back home from elementary school who I hadn't seen in a long time. He just like started coming over, and he came over with his toolbox and was like, I can't fix what's really broken here, but I can make repairs on your house. And actually our toilet wasn't working. And it just was it still is. I mean, that was close to 10 years ago for me. And I still actually feel the sensation of like that support that I received from people at a time that I needed it the most. And I still think about it. I still think about how those people enriched my life. And it probably to my friend Michael, who fixed our toilet, seemed like no big deal. They came over and fixed it, but it was just so like, it was everything to me at that time,
That's so powerful, Megan. I'm so glad you brought that example, because I could be on, my side, or we can be on one side helping others, and you get that fulfillment of helping others. It's important to them. But the fact that you're telling us that there was things that people help you out with, little things that they did for you 10 years ago that you don't just remember. You still
feel them.
Feel them. You feel those effects. So imagine what, those other people feel when you help them, or when you were, in Thailand, or what that $30 bag of rice did for those people. Or maybe that's, or different examples of little things that we do a lot of the times, even for kids and where people are young. I think too, it sticks really strong when somebody from another country or a different type of culture comes in and does something for you without expecting anything in return. It probably really sticks.
It really does. And there's something to be said, I think, about acknowledging somebody and because, back at that time when my dad has passed, I felt so untouchable, or just so isolated in my pain and in my grief. Like, maybe nobody would want to be around me because I was just such a mess, that having somebody just enter my home and offer to be there and spend time with me at one of the worst times of my life just felt, that's what really did it. It wasn't necessarily about the toilet. It was more like the message that was sent, that like, I still love you when you're at your worst. Yeah.
I think a lot of people freeze in those situations, and they end up not saying anything because of like discomfort. And that's like the worst thing you can do. It's just, sometimes you just got to say, hey, I'm here. That's it. And, and then actually try to be there even better. But, yeah, that's powerful. Thanks for sharing that. So what is the Kind Effect up to today? What are the latest things that the Kind Effect is doing? What do we got?
Well, a lot of my videos live on YouTube, and I never really wanted to be like the crying channel, so, because there's a lot of like,
there's crying.
There's a lot of crying.
There's crying. I've shed a tear.
You did?
Oh, I have.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of crying. So, but sometimes I try to mix it up with like spontaneous moments of joy just because it's like
Yeah.
silly. And that's, that's the other side of my personality. I'm not just like a sentimental person who
You know which one I
starts
should hear on?
crying.
I was remembering the it was all these letters. What was it? Oh,
Oh, and in Italy, the
yeah, what was that about?
letters to Juliet.
Yeah. And it was about, tell us a little, what was that about? Remind me.
So Verona, Italy is the city that is known for Romeo and Juliet. And there's an organization there that collects all the letters that people come to leave to Juliet. A lot of them are about unrequited love or stories of loss or heartbreak. And so you can go to this organization and you can volunteer to answer the letters as if you were Juliet. So I actually thought it was going to be really funny. I thought it was going to be like teenagers writing about people who don't love them. And I just happened to pick out of the box the ones that were about like death and losing family members. I was like, wow, this is really serendipitous. Like I have chills right now.
Gnarly, yeah.
Yeah, because it was such a serendipitous thing.
Yeah.
And so I just had to pull from my gut, like what response would I want to give this person in time of loss that really would have been meaningful to me.
Yeah, I highly recommend people to watch that video. It's pretty crazy because these are like real hardcore letters that people are writing about their heartbreak to an organization that they don't expect necessarily that letter's going to come back. So you're going in there as a stranger responding to that letter.
Yeah,
pretty
it's very
powerful.
Cathartic too.
Yeah, pretty powerful. So what are we up to?
Beyond that, these days, I think honestly with the COVID era, it's more about spreading joy because everyone's just been at this point like at home and it's pretty glim out there. So I bought a T-Rex costume.
T-Rex costume.
Yeah, an inflatable T-Rex costume. And I'm going to be doing kind deeds as the Kindosaur.
The Kindosaur.
Yeah, the Kindosaur.
So the T-Rex costume.
Kindosaurus Rex.
Because it protects you. You can't, it's like better than a mask.
Yeah, it's like wearing a plastic bubble, basically.
Yeah. And so what are you going to be doing?
I really just want to like walk around in a T-Rex costume and hand out flowers to strangers with a sign that says "Be kind" on it. Things like this.
I love it. That's awesome. And what's going on your website right now?
Well, I have a couple freebies right now.
Okay.
The first is a 3-day acts of kindness challenge. I think what's really great about this challenge is that I've incorporated it into a mental health practice. So there's a couple of different happiness and well-being surveys that come from Yale that you can take on the first day, and then you do 3 days worth of acts of kindness, and it has inspiration in there. So you can pick from that list, and then you survey your happiness and well-being again so that you can see if doing things for others actually increases your state of happiness and well-being.
That's amazing. So is the bottom line of that doing that is helping you release chemicals in your brain like serotonin or dopamine or whatever that are actually making you happy? Yeah.
Because it actually does.
That's amazing. That's great. Yes. I mean, it just makes me think again of those people out there that are thinking, I don't have it in me to quit my job and start this great do-good company and purpose-driven brand. And you don't have to do that. You can actually give back. You could do random acts of kindness. You could go to the Kind Effect today and take this test first and then do the acts of kindness and then see if it actually works for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then you can go ahead and go on to Megan's Instagram and comment and tell her that it didn't work. But I highly doubt that's going to happen.
Your plan sucks. Forget kindness. I'm going to go back to being mean because it got me further. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine too.
So Megan, what do you think are the 2 traits that conscious leaders today must focus on? 1 or 2 traits.
Open-mindedness and compassion.
Wonderful. Love it. And so how do people get in touch with you or the Kind Effect?
Well, they can go to thekindeffect.com.
Oh, you're not going to give your cell phone number?
My cell number is 867-5309.
Man.
867-5. You remember that, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Kindeffect.com. My email address is on there. My social media is on there. There's a lot of ways to get in touch these days.
You can search Megan Snedden, too, if you want to, on Instagram. If you want to go look at all of her epic travels. and all of her wonderful, kind deeds. So really, really appreciate having you on, Megan. I really enjoyed it, and keep doing what you do. It's super inspiring, and I hope people get inspired from everything that you do. Thank you so much.
I appreciate being here, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Because it's valuable.
Thanks for being you. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. You know, it takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit SebastianNaum.com for more content, and follow me on Instagram at SebNaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.